and welcome to another episode of the Reckless Paradise podcast. I am your host, Joe, and it is another Thursday episode. And tonight's episode is going to be an interesting one. Now, if you notice some of the episodes on the channel before, we have done What If. And with that being said, tonight's episode is another What If episode. Now we've done we've done music, we've done wrestling and all that stuff, but I'm gonna take it back to wrestling a little bit. Now for this What If episode, it is going to be not very controversial, but it is going to be a episode or a What If scenario that a lot of people has come up with before and probably still talk about to this day. What if Owen Hart never fell to his death in 1999? Now, I know you can't really change the past, but this is a what if, so we're going to change a lot of things in this episode. For starters, we're not going to have him dress up as the Blue Blazer because that was the shittiest gimmick that he ever had. Sorry, Owen. And plus, he doesn't come down from the rafters and all that stuff. He just comes out straight as an entrance and all that stuff. And, just wrestles Godfather in the IC title match at Over the Edge. It's a shame that he had passed away when he was so young. Like, I think he was in his 30s or something when he passed, which is kind of crazy. So it's like, I rather do this episode now and just try to get my what if scenario off my chest and out of my mind. So let's dive right into that. So I did a little bit of research, and he was 34 when he passed. He was so young, so full of life, and he left behind like a family. He left behind his wife and kids. I know that if he was still around to this day, he would be doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes in WWE or WWF at that point. But I want to kind of talk about like what he would have done still in the WWF before he went on to like greener pastures, with like TNA being open, ROH, and all that stuff. So I think he would have stayed there for like a little bit more, like a few more years, maybe like going into like 01, maybe 02. He would like be feuding with like guys like Jericho, because like Owen Hart versus Chris Jericho. I mean, like come on, that'd be a match of the year contender sort of thing right there. You would have like Chris, or you would have Owen Hart versus like Kurt Angle. Like that'd be like crazy match right there. I mean, hell, you could probably maybe even run back Owen Hart versus Steve Austin for the WWF title at that point. At some point, I should say, because you could always run back that SummerSlam 1997 match where Owen Hart broke Steve Austin's neck. It's the infamous like I just broke Stone Cold Steve Austin's neck and all that stuff. So it's like you always have to go to those callbacks every once in a while. But then you would know, like I said, you have Chris Jericho, you have Kurt Angle. Maybe I would like to see Owen Hart versus Eddie Guerrero or Owen Hart versus Benoit. This is before CTE and all that crap. Owen Hart was he was a master of his craft at that point, and I'm actually kind of shocked that he wasn't world heavyweight champion or anything. He was a multiple time IC champion, and then he was a multiple time I think tag team champion, which is that's crazy that he never got his due in the WWF or WWE. It's an actual shame that he was just held down because of his size. And you would think with WCW being their competition, you would think Owen Hart could go do that in WCW, but I think he would still be held down by his size. But then you would if he did get a world title runs, who would he face? Well, it's you would have you'd have The Rock, you would have Triple H, you would have Stone Cold Steve Austin, you would have Big Show. You would have some really good, credible contenders in the world heavyweight title picture. But it's he's more in if the light heavyweight division wasn't dead at that point. You could also have him in the cruiserweight division when it comes through in 02. But I would say he had a good lengthy career in the WWF and also WWE. Like going into 01, like 02, like maybe like he gets like let go because due to like contractual clause or something like that. I could see him going to like TNA, like when it's just first starting out, and like he's a free agent, so it's like you have him go to TNA. Like you'll have him like face like Raven. Have him face like AJ Styles, D'Lo Brown when he goes there in 02, like 03. You have him like face like Bobby Roode, like some of the younger guys that are just coming up and all that stuff, like because them versus like Owen and all that stuff, and it's like a former WWE WWF guy, like making their name for themselves in the TNA, they're like a competition, and it's actually kind of like crazy to think about like all the crazy matchups that you can see in TNA and everywhere else. But like I was saying, like since he is a free agent, he can go wherever he pleases. So he can go to TNA, he can go to New Japan, he can go to PWG. Like when they're just about to first start out, like you can go to ROH. Like ROH is like just coming up off the ground too in O2. So like there's a lot of good possibilities that he can do anything elsewhere. But if we stay with the topic of the TNA thing, um, they're prominent like heel faction at that point. It's like was like Team Canada, so you have like Bobby Roode, Eric Young, A1, Petey Williams, and all that stuff. Like Owen Hart and Petey Williams would be like an incredible tag team. Like let's just think about that for a second. You have like you have the Canadian Destroyer, whereas like then you have like like then you have Owen with the sharpshooter. Like does a Canadian Destroyer also into like a sharpshooter like or just like Canadian Destroyer 1 2 3 whatever or like whatever. That would be a crazy like kind of like major name for that faction because then you can have like more credibility with that. But then you have to run the risk of like would he be overexposed? Like can he still go sort of thing? And it's like you don't really want to risk that. But I can still see like Owen Hart being like a WWE guy like through and through like till like maybe like 04 05 because like you have your like your Batistas, you have your Randy Ortons, you have your HBKs, you have your like John Cena's, uh, you have like all these people from like the OVW02 class coming up and all that stuff, and it's like Shelton Benjamin versus Owen Hart, like that sounds like a dream match to me, and I wish like we could have gotten that, but we didn't. Like if we're going back to WWE for a second, like if I may, like all the different matchups that we could have gotten to, like like I said, Owen Hart versus Angle, Jericho, Benoit, Guerrero, Owen Hart versus Edge, if anybody's interested in that, like Owen Hart versus like like Rey Mysterio, Owen Hart versus like Chavo Guerrero, like Owen Hart versus like like anybody, because like it brings the best out of them, but Owen Hart brings the best out of himself in matches, which like he's always like a best match machine. He's always like holding up the two slammies. Like I remember the two slammies that he's won and all that stuff, and it's one of those things where it's like you just never know what could happen to people before they're gone. So with that being said, still sticking with the WWE train, like he's there from like '04 to '05, and then he leaves WWE because like they didn't renew his contract and all that stuff. So where does he go? He goes to TNA, where that's where the biggest like it's kind of like an indie supercard on TNA programming. So you have like you have AJ Styles, you have Daniels, you have Joe, you have like if he's in the X division, I think he would make the X division more must see because that's another big name that they can use on their roster. And at the time, if you remember in our year in review for 0506, TNA at the time was like in a working partnership with ROH, so ROH guys would have TV time on TNA and vice versa, which is like a really good relationship. Also around that time too, like Christian Cage was just coming in, so like Owen Harvers and Christian Cage, like that would be a huge like Canadian like like matchup. But then, like, you have like Christian Cage being billed from Tampa, Florida, which is like kind of funny. Um, like another big thing, like like Owen Hart in like the X division in the world title picture and in the tag divisions, like he can do no wrong in either division. Um, it's just to help TNA be more mainstream, I think. But another big promotion that I could see him in it was in New Japan, because like he was in New Japan, I think maybe for a few months or something like that. I could be wrong about that. I don't really know. But like I can see him going like gets like Tanahashi, like Okada if he's still coming up like he was a young boy, um, like Nakamura, Naito and all that stuff. So it's like I can see him like having all these like incredible matches anywhere else but WWE, because it's like he's lived out his usefulness in WWE, so he needs to go prove himself elsewhere. Like like how like some people like they'll be in WWE for a little bit, but then they go to the Indies to prove themselves and prove their self worth before they come back and they're like pushed like big and hard and all that stuff. So it's like it would be a good thing for Owen to do that. But since we're sticking with TNA and stuff, I could see like I was saying like in the previous like few minutes, I can see like Owen Hart being part of like the Team Canada faction, because then you have like huge credibility as their top guy. So it's like PD's got the X Division title. Like I mean, he's like X Division guy. You have Rude and Eric Young win like the NWA tag titles, and then you have Owen Hart winning the World Heavyweight title. It's like it's basically teenage version of the Hart Foundation, if you want to think about it. I know they're probably not going to call it the Hart Foundation. They're just going to call it Team Canada and all that stuff. But I mean, like, what cool faction would that be? Just having all the main guys like having their own titles and their own stakes in the company, and they're like they're big shots and big like title contenders and all that stuff, and they're holding their own in the company. And Owen Hart would like go through everybody. Like he would like face Abyss. He'll face Bonnie Brown. He'll face Raven. He'll face whoever and whatever. I would say like he would hold on to the title to like maybe Bound for Glory in '05, and then and then go like straight with AJ Styles, because that would be a huge money match for Owen and AJ, and it would be a huge money match for TNA because that would sell a lot of tickets, because it's Owen Hart, who's like this like grizzled young veteran, and and like you're facing against the guy, the TNA guy in AJ Styles. So then you would have like AJ win over Owen Hart, which would establish him more as a main event level guy. And then and then around that time too, like Kurt Angle is coming in around '05, '06. So then like you could say like, well, I faced you in WWE, and like you won against me, but it's like now like this is a whole new playground, and I make my own rules and all that stuff, and you just have the feud with Kurt Angle with Owen Hart. Like you still sell seats because it's a feud that we've seen before, but this time it's a whole new ball game. But then like Kurt Angle would like win the TNA World Heavyweight title over AJ Styles. There's no point of like Kurt Angle coming in and losing his first like title match in his first matches ever. And plus like AJ and Kurt Angle has have bangers before, so it's like it's not gonna be stale or anything. But then you would have Kurt hold on to the title till Lockdown '06, and then Owen Hart would win it back, but then he would lose it to Samoa Joe at Slammiversary '06, the exact same year. But then you would have like Kurt Angle versus Owen Hart in like maybe like a retirement match or something, or the loser must retire or something. But then it's like you gotta like feel like kind of like sympathetic, because it's like if either man loses, it's like it's like, oh man, like the one dude has to retire forever and all that stuff. And it's like, Angle's not going to lose because it's like, he's perk Angle around this point. He's still like hopped up on perks and all that stuff and or Percocets. And so it's like Owen Hart's got to lose here, but he's had a lengthy career in the wrestling business. Um, it would be a shame to see him go out like that. But this was around the same time period where Eddie Guerrero had passed, and then the exact same, I guess, almost year, like '05 is like when Eddie passed, and then '06 was like when Benoit passed. So then you have you gotta have I would say maybe if you would want to do that, maybe you can label the Angle and Owen Hart match as the Benoit tribute match or something. Which I mean that's gonna be like a little red flag there, but it's like you gotta do something to keep the Benoit memory alive. Also, if you want to hear more about like the Benoit thing, we've talked about that before on the podcast. It is a very lengthy episode on that. There is a trigger warning at the beginning of that episode. If you are triggered by the certain topics on that episode, we do not wish you to watch that. But if you want to watch it, viewer discretion is advised. There is a whole Dark Side of the Ring episode on the Benoit tragedy and all stuff, and there's a Dark Side of the Ring episode on the Owen Hart tragedy as well. I would highly recommend go listening to or watching both of those episodes because they go really, really in depth on that. But this is if he was still alive and he was still wrestling and all that stuff. But with that being said, Angle wins over Owen Hart, and Owen Hart must retire, which that'd be like the saddest moment in wrestling history. But he goes out with a bang, not with a whimper. But then he would officially announce his retirement, and he would end up returning to the WWE with a Legends contract, which is it's a good girthy contract because you can still get paid and you still get um merch sales and all that stuff. But then he would just he would just be with Brett in the 2010 Hall of Fame, with Brett as the Hart Foundation and whatever, which would be a cool little moment for Brett and Owen. Um, and it's he would still be there to witness Brett have the worst match on the WrestleMania card that year against Vince McMahon. Um, but then it's like what would he do after that? Because it's he's gonna be retired forever. Maybe he'd do some wrestle cons and all that stuff. Do some some indie dates or something like that. He could be do what Jeff Jarrett does. He says he's retired, but he's not really. Same with Ric Flair, because you never know what his next freaking match is. Um, but then around 2019 is that's where AEW starting to come up, and Cody him and the Young Bucks and all that stuff, and Hangman Page and all that stuff, and it's Owen Hart knew Dusty because he has fought Goldust before and all that stuff, and it's actually kind of cool. That'd be kind of cool, just to see Owen Hart as a backstage producer for AEW, and help train Ricky Starks, Jungle Boy, FTR, and all that stuff. All these young and bright upcoming stars for AEW to see where they can go. But then he can witness the transition from the 2019 AEW to now 24 AEW. Because then he can see people coming in Swerve Strickland, Will Ospreay, Christian Cage, just to name a few there. Which I mean that'd be kind of cool to just see that happen. But then you have your backstage people Jerry Lynn, Christopher Daniels. But then you can witness the I guess the birth of more and more stars coming in. But then maybe like if he wants to, he can go back to WWE for like a cup of coffee or something like that as like a backstage producer. Because then he could just visit like old pals and all that stuff and witness like the NXT current product at that point too. Um, this is like it's a what if that I've been wanting to do for a while, but it's like one of those things where it's like there's not a lot meat on the bones for this what if. It's like it's just hypothetical what I'm speaking about. But it's a cool like little concept that I've wanted to do. I know there's probably like a lot of like what ifs out there that haven't covered yet, but I will get to those at some point. But just not right now at this current climate because like what ifs are like kind of hard to do a little bit more because it's like you got to think about like what if this happened, what if this happened, what if this happened, what if that happened, and all that stuff. So it's like you got to like think about a lot of things on that. But with that being said, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for listening to my What If episode spiel. If you like what I have been saying for the last 21 minutes, leave it in the comments below. See see what other what if episodes you want me to do, and I'll try to do them as fast as possible. And if I can try to find a certain theme, which is probably going to be mostly wrestling. That's my mo. But with that being said, I have the song of the night, and it is from a band that I recently found not too long ago, which is surprising. It is called Honey Revenge, and their song is Distracted. And if you like some, like, I guess it's like, it's not emo rock, but it's like kind of like pop rock ish, if you want to call it that. They, I think they started in like 2022, 2023, I believe. And they already have like one album out and all that stuff. They are really, really, really good. And it's just like two people. That's just crazy. But with that being said, that is the song of the night, and thank you so much for listening to our podcast. For all these years, we do really appreciate it. We do have a TikTok page, we have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram page, we have a Reddit page, we have a YouTube channel, which you're currently listening to this on right now. And I have my own YouTube page. At the time of recording, hopefully I should be able or at 1,400 by this point, hopefully. But I mean, like I said, if I'm not at 1,400, it's not the end of the world. There's always next month, but I'm trying to get to 1,400, but let's make that happen. So, with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you guys, or well, Marissa will see you guys this upcoming Sunday. Peace.